Hi, everyone. I'm Darcy Pickering from Bannister Lake, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar. Real-time data has never been more important. At a time when audiences rely on up-to-the-second information, real-time data provides the best opportunity for broadcasters, content producers, and public health officials to take advantage of every platform to deliver vital news and information. One of the important advantages of Bannister Lake's Chameleon product is the ability to strategically distribute content to any platform, broadcasts, social media, websites, and streaming. Today's webinar is going to focus on connecting real-time data from Chameleon to some of the broadcast industry's most popular graphic engines. And we're thrilled to have Phil Carmichael here as a host. Phil's a former CBC Sports graphic designer and operator and former pre-sales specialist at ChyronHego. He brings many years of experience to the world of graphics and data, and his insights are invaluable. Before we begin, just a bit of housekeeping. We have a quick internal anonymous poll about our webinar audience, and we'd like to just put on these two polling questions. One is the market sectors you represent and the CG platforms you currently use. So the top question there, what markets do you represent? You can select multiples if you like. We also have a second question on the CG platforms. And again, that's multiple selection as well. The other thing we're going to be touching on today with this webinar is we're going to have a Q&A section at the end. There'll be an opportunity to answer any questions you may have during the course of the presentation. So you can submit those questions on the Q&A tools on your screen. Just simply type your question and then click submit. We'll also be making a recording of this webinar available to you on our YouTube site, which is youtube.com/Bannister Lake 1, as in the number 1. What makes Chameleon special is that it can integrate with any broadcast graphics engine or any system that can accept the data feed. And here to explain more about this is our special guest today, Phil Carmichael.
Welcome to Bannister Lake's webinar series. Bannister Lake gave me the opportunity to take their product Chameleon for a test drive, and I soon realized that it is the perfect solution for all your data needs. If you're a news or sports broadcaster and you're looking for a product that will provide data streams for news headlines, sports tickers, financial tickers, and elections, then Bannister Lake's Chameleon is the perfect solution. Bannister Lake is a Canadian company, and I had no idea of how many customers they were working with. Real-time data is seen by millions of viewers, and every broadcaster needs a robust solution to retrieve that data and easily connect it to the graphics system for on-air and web. Broadcasters need a quick and easy way to get this data information out to its viewers on any device they are using. Chameleon is the perfect choice. I've been in the broadcast news and sports industry for many years with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and recently with Chyron and ChyronHego. I've seen how many broadcasters around the world are competing with each other to get the results to air first. In my opinion, Bannister Lake's Chameleon is the perfect solution that can work with any graphics system. So in the next few minutes, I will show you how easy it is to navigate around all the different data feeds that you would be able to use with Chameleon, and then how to connect it to a graphics system. In a single station environment, Chameleon is either a standalone server or virtual machine in your local facility. Chameleon is bundled with some data feeds already enabled, or they have more than 50 data readers for the data streams you are already using today. This is where Chameleon starts to work. It manages the data, and then it can be scheduled or manually sent to the playout devices, which include multiple graphics engines, HTML5 or NDI, and web and data destinations. If you are a network with many stations, the hub facility is like the single station we just talked about, with the same inputs and outputs. Your regional stations act as clients to the main Chameleon at the hub through web browser access. There is also the ability for public data entry for all your school and other closings information. Groups are then created for your local data needs. A backup server is also available. This is what the main user interface of Chameleon looks like. At the top of the menu is the content area. These are all the data feeds that are included with Chameleon. The alerts module can be organized on types of alerts such as flooding or meteorological, and information can be entered manually as well. The events module is very similar to alerts. It is used for creating events like concert listing, sporting events, and community events. The stories module is very much the same. Stories can include headlines, breaking news, or any other simple content. Story data is often acquired through RSS feeds, however, you can also enter stories manually. The closing module creates notifications for institutions of any kind, from schools to government buildings to community centers, during statutory holidays, emergencies, or for inclement weather. For example, you may want to create a closing notification that lists the status of every school in a geographical district following a snowstorm. The custom module is used to create records that can hold any of the supported data typed in dynamic fields. So for instance, you could use this for adding home and away sports team players. Bannister Lake also uses this area right now to display COVID-19 cases around the world. Connect this data to your graphics template once, and each day a simple recall of that scene will show updated results. You can even have this data displayed on the home page of your website. The financial module is connected to Google Finance for you already. If you are okay with getting the updated stock quotes on a 20-minute delay, you're all set to go. If you are a financial network, Bannister Lake can make sure your financial reader is actively getting you immediate stock information. Since my main background in broadcasting was sports, the sports module intrigued me. I will be exploring this module more because I believe that the sports module using the correct sports data reader would allow users to use the module for a complete sporting event. A few templates would be needed on your graphics system, and you are ready to pick your home and away team, and up-to-the-minute data of what is happening in the game could be displayed. Or if you just want a sports ticker with updated team scores displayed, this is the module to use. The Twitter module is just that. Create some playlists of tweets that you are seeing and be able to play them on your graphics system or on your website. With the weather module, Bannister Lake has rural cities included, but you can add your own weather data reader to get your local weather conditions. The traffic module is used to create traffic reports. You may want to create a traffic report detailing a collision or construction zones. Recently, Bannister Lake added Vision traffic cameras to Chameleon, where producers can select traffic cameras from many locations around the world to show updated traffic conditions. And finally, the elections module. Chameleon has election readers that are free for you to download, such as AP, Canadian Consortium, and DDHQ. Chameleon then sorts the data for you to make playlists or rundowns. Simply pick the result that you need and drag it to your playlist, either one at a time or a whole group of results. You can also have your election results on a web page on your website, where users can move around and select the areas they are interested in. These web pages look and feel like a touchscreen. You could actually take this web page and display it on a touchscreen monitor for your news anchor to use. Touchscreen graphics at a fraction of the cost. So Chameleon produces all this data, but how do we get this data integrated into these systems? First of all, we'll start with Ross's expression. Now, Ross's expression is tightly integrated with Chameleon through the expression data link server. Now, if you have another system that is not tightly integrated into Chameleon, like Avid's Maestro, it can import these kind of data formats And VizRT is similar. It can import XML files and other formats. ClassX is the same. It can bring in all these kinds of different formats. And I'm sure almost any graphics platform today can import these kinds of data formats. But the product that I'm most familiar with is ChyronHego's Prime system. So we're going to go into Chameleon and show how to produce the data and then how I could bring that data into ChyronHego's Prime system, which should be very similar to each of the other systems. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Stories. That's the very first content that I'm going to start with. So we'll go into Stories, and I'm going to build a playlist of top stories. So we're going to make a new playlist we're going to call News Stories. And we have a lot of data sources coming in. So let's just pick BBC Top Stories. And I go through the list that I want and simply drag the ones from the BBC Top Stories into my playlist. And I can select different feeds. So this one's CNN News. We'll drag this one over into place. And this one, and let's pick one more. From the Asia Pacific News, we're going to pick the WestJet one. So now my playlist is done. So let's go back to the main menu and down under Miscellaneous, click on Blade. Now from this menu, I'm just going to press on Stories. The format is set to XML. There's my playlist, and I'm going to hit Generate. And it just generated an XML file. When I hit Test, we can take a look at it to see that it's correct. Yes, it is. There it is. And this is a web-based URL, so I'm going to copy this out of here. And now with the data source in Prime, there's the URL that I pasted in, and there's all the information. But any system that accepts a web-based XML file will just work exactly the same way. So I have mine set. I'm going to drag the stories to the preview window and play it to air. And this is how it looks on the output, the top news stories, and this will keep going through because I have it set to loop. It'll go through all of the stories and just keep looping. So it's that easy to get news stories from an XML file into any graphic system using Chameleon. I want to switch to the alerts module next because it's very similar to the stories. So the alerts can be organized into station or location-based groups, and they can be alerts such as flooding or meteorological, and the data is often acquired through an automated feed, but it also can be entered manually as well. So I just selected California here, and this was an alert that would come in automatically. This is an old alert, but we just have it for demo purposes. And so then I come back, and just like I did before, I go into Blade, and I select the group. So I come down to Group where it says Select a Group, and I'll pick up California. When I hit Generate, again, it generates an XML file, and I can hit Test to see the XML file. There it is. So as I did before, I just copy this string out of here, and I'll go then into the Prime system under the data object, and you can see that I put that URL in there. Now this one has two text fields. One is the alert text, which has all the information about the alert, and the event. So the event is flash flood watch, or it could be something else as well, but that's what was in there. So now when I bring the automated one onto the screen, onto the previous screen, and hit play, it actually interacts with this one. That's the way I've designed it. So it's interacting. There's the top news story. The news alert comes on top, and it says flash flood watch, and there's the information along the bottom. So I have this set that when it's done, it'll actually automatically trigger itself off the screen and go back to the news stories one. But here's the alerts manual one. So I can type in anything that I want. So your news producers could actually go here and type in a manual one and bring it to air. It's going to be exactly the same as before. It comes onto the screen, the Chameleon manual alert, and there's the information that goes along the bottom. So again, it's great for automated. If you have alerts coming in that are automated, they would automatically come in. You could play that scene back to air, and or your news staff could do a manual one as well. So I want to switch over to financials now. So I'm going to click on financials, and I'm going to build a playlist. So the first thing is I'm going to create a playlist. So I'm going to call this World Stock Prices. And then to build the playlist, just simply drag the ones that I want from the left column into the right column. So we'll just drag 3 or 4 of them in here. There's one. Let's do the NASDAQ. And one more, we'll do S&P 500. Okay, so now that the playlist is done, I'll click the home button again, and just like we did before, we'll go into Blade and click on Financials and select that playlist that I just created. We'll hit Generate to generate the XML file and simply copy that URL out of there. So I'll go back over to Prime, and this is how I created that data object. So click on Data, click on Web, put in that web address that I just copied, and select the Web Financial List. There they are. So I just want to attach the text fields to this. So that's the stock company text. This is the price text, and this is the price change. Now, I'm not showing the price change, but I'm using that to create the area for the arrows, either arrow up, arrow down, or unchanged. And we'll just put a command in here to move to the first in the list. And I want this to go every 5 seconds. So we'll say move next update and start that timer. And that basically goes through the stock prices now. So this is how it is. I'm going to hit play. And then this comes onto the screen. And so there's the first one that came on and the second one and so forth. Now, if I want to change that order, I can simply go back to that playlist and start moving them around. And when I play it the next time, it reflects those changes. So that works for the news headlines as well. I can change the order of the news headlines, add some, drop some, create a brand new one the next day, and just play that scene to air, and all the updates take place. So let's switch over to weather right now. So I'm going to click on weather. And what I want to do with weather is I want to build a playlist of world cities. So let's type in the playlist name. So I'm going to call it Today's Weather. And these are world cities. The weather automatically comes in. You get this with Chameleon. But again, if you were a local station and you wanted weather locations right around your station, you would bring in your own weather into Chameleon and be able to select them. So we're just going to bring in a couple of more cities here. I'm going to pick Washington, D.C. There it is. We'll add that one to the playlist. And the final one I want to pick is Toronto, and that's where I'm living. So we'll pick Toronto and add that. So now we have the playlist already built. Now, as we did before, we just go back into Blade again. And we select the weather icon. And then come down and select the playlist. Now this one is set to XML as well, just like we did before. Now the other unique thing here is you can actually select the units. So it defaults to that, but you can select US, which is Fahrenheit miles per hour. You can see UK there, which is Celsius, but miles per hour. Or I'm just going to select US. Now before we connect it to graphics, let's just go into sports and take a look at that. So we have it set to scores, and we can go to many scores in many different leagues. I have some NHL scores here. We can select other different leagues to show the scores. So if I click on the leagues, it would show me the leagues that are already loaded in here. And I could click on, let's say, FIFA World Cup, and it would show me all the teams. I'm going to come back to NHL. There's all the NHL teams. Same thing with NBA. And if we go up to players, we actually have all the players loaded for all the teams as well. So there's Miami. If I select Denver there shows the players in Denver, and it has all their bio information already in there. So if I select NHL and pick the Kings, there's all the players for the Los Angeles Kings. But let's go back to playlists for a sec, because I want to build a playlist of scores. So I actually have one started here with the 3 NHL scores, but I can add to that. I can add NBA and so forth. We actually have just a demo one loaded here. So I'm going to select the demo one, and we'll be able to drag that one in as well. So before I go on, here is all the data going at the same time. And you can see that while it's on the air, I can go to any one of these. So there's the playlist, the sports playlist, and I'm going to drag that demo one in. And when the data comes around again, it's automatically going to update. Same thing with the weather. If I go back to weather and I go back into my playlists and I select today's weather, I can actually do a search in here. So I can type in HON or HON if I want and hit enter, and it would show me the city, and then I can simply drag that in as well. So it's that easy. Once your graphics are on the air and all the data is being produced, you can actually just go in and change anything that you want, and it will automatically update. And the same thing when you come to tomorrow. Because these templates are already all linked, it's just a matter of going in and changing what the data source is for your top stories, for your sports scores, your weather, your financial data. Just change that and it will automatically update. So whether you have your data just along the bottom of the screen or in an L frame like this, Chameleon is a great product for updating all of your data needs. So switching over to custom just for a second, this is where you can actually create your custom data streams. And one of the ones that Bannister Lake actually gives you is the COVID-19 totals. So there's world cities, there's one for Canada, there's one for the US, and there's one for the world totals as well. So just as before, we go back to the home and click on Blade. And under custom, we can select the topic that we want. So I'm going to select COVID-19, and I actually created two of these. One of them for the Canadian totals and one for all the provinces. So I've created two data streams here and connected it to the same template. And so just like before, any day that you want to call this total up and display it on your air, it's going to give you updated totals. The last area that I wanted to talk about was election coverage and how Chameleon can help you with your election coverage. Chameleon is a web browser that can either be local at your local station or in the cloud, and it's really central to everything. All the data gets put into the Chameleon. The live decision desk, they control what graphics they want to play back, and the output is HTML5 or SDI. Now, Bannister Lake actually has their own designer tool. This is showing the different templates. There's a 2 headshot template, a 3 headshot template, and a 4 headshot template. And you can build the graphics just like you can in any other graphics platform in here, including animations, and then tie it to Chameleon's data. You might want to have the same look as your graphics on air, but have them on the website as well. An operator can be using this rundown controller, controlling the graphics to your website. Just by pressing the take, we'll take the next template in the rundown. Chameleon is a great solution for all your data needs: sports, weather, financial data, and news headlines. And putting the control into the producer's hands to create rundowns for election results. And being able to create touchscreen web pages for your viewers makes Chameleon a great choice for all your election needs. Chameleon can also be used for closings of every kind. You have the traffic module, including traffic cameras from many places around the world, and using Chameleon for Twitter playlists is also available. If you would like more information about Chameleon, please contact them at info@bannisterlake.com.
Thanks, Phil. That was great. Some good information there. Chameleon is an agnostic solution working with any graphics engine, as you saw, or digital signage solution that can take a data feed. Most importantly, Chameleon is a one-stop solution addressing all of a broadcaster or producer's data visualization needs. So let's look at some of the questions we received during presentation. Here we had a series of questions. I'll get our panelists to pick one. We'll start with the first question. What is the source of weather data? I'll answer that one. For the weather data, we have a couple of different sources. Some of them are subscriptions, so WSI. Dark sky, there's a variety of different data sources. If there's a data provider that you prefer, we can write an agent for it. There's another question here. Do you have data in Spanish? Our product is Unicode, so there are many users around the world using Chameleon in something other than English. It can be French, virtually any language. There's a alerts example. It was showing that that one would pick from the alerts and add to a playlist. Is there a search option on that side, or does one have to scroll down and select which item alert they want before adding? Any of our panelists want to take that?
Okay, so what was the question? Sorry, I was.
So yeah, I was just providing there was the question there, George, on the alerts, in the new alerts example that Phil showed, where you would pick from the alerts and add to a playlist.
Oh, okay. So there's different things you can do. We have a thing called query that you can basically create dynamic playlists, right? So you can, whatever your requirements are, you can search alerts and dynamically pull the ones that you want. So if you wanted to search all alerts that are flood-based, or if you wanted to choose all alerts that are in a specific province or state, or like any condition that you want, you can create a dynamic playlist, not just with alerts, but with all our data. So as an example, for sports scores, if you only wanted to show games that are in progress, create a query, and you can now just grab the ones in progress instead of grabbing all of them for one league or all leagues, or you could create a playlist that would take all games for teams in a specific city. So they're really, like, all data in our database is open to be queried. So the purest of dynamic playlists as you can dream of. But that being said, you can also manually create a playlist if you really need to. Okay, is that good enough, Darius?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. George, did you, while we're at it here, did you want to just answer the question about pictures and video from social media as it relates to Twitter in this case?
So right now, I think we're mostly talking about Blade here, right? So to get it from our RESTful API. And right now what we do is and it's not just from social media, but from any data type, including the media data type, that you can create your own bins of media. But Blade gives you a URL to the media, right? Because we actually store the media, in a bitmap within our database, but it spits out a URL. So if that's a problem, and it can be, right? So as an example, I think Phil mentioned that Prime can't deal with media URLs. So what we've done, I think we had the same thing with Viz, is all we do is we have a little caching app that will spit it out. Like, you got a couple of choices here, but one of the choices is you could just spit out the media to a local drive wherever you want it to be. So not ideally CGs should support URLs. So that's pretty, I blame them, not us, but we have a way of spitting out the media to files, like to traditional operating system file systems.
Yeah, that's good, George, thanks. And then we have another question here. Do you have experience with regional data providers in Germany? We do support a number of data feeds. They're all on our wiki, A to Z. There's, I don't know if we support a regional provider in Germany. George, is that something, if someone requested it, that we'd look into?
Well, okay, here's a couple of things to consider. We have an open database, and we have an open third-party developers can create their own parsers to populate our database. Okay, so I mean, we will write any parser for any customer, but you don't need to. You don't need us to do it. You can do it yourself, or you can get your own dev team to deal with it. But regardless of, you know, one of the reasons we made it an open environment for data is, you know, for some character sets, some languages, some cultures, we have no chance in, you know, writing a parser because we don't know the language. So, I mean, we have a customer in you know, Asian customer who we had trouble reading, you know, the specs for the data feed. So they wrote their own. And that's what I would, but for Germany, you know, if you needed help, I mean, we'd be fine writing parsers for languages that, or character sets that we feel comfortable with. And actually with languages we feel comfortable with.
Another question here, in scraping social media, can Chameleon pass Unicode emojis to the graphic systems, or would the graphic system also have to support them?
Well, we fully support emojis, you know, so if the CG supports emojis, great. If it doesn't, you get a blank character, I think, or you get no character.
Right,
typically.
right.
But if you looked into our database, or if you looked at our web interface, which we call Flow, you'll see all the emojis for every single data type. So not just social media, you can litter all data types with emojis, even sports scores, even, you know, we treat, you know, all characters equal.
Oh, that's good. Great. The next question, CSV output, so comma separated. Can you control the organization of it with regards to the order of information in each position?
Yes. And you know how you do that? You do that using the query data type. So by default, you get our order. So if you got a bunch of sports scores, you get our order. But if you wanted not only the order of the fields changed or even filtered, so you don't get them all, you get, you know, the 5 fields you want in the exact same order, and with additional formatting on the server side, you write a query and it'll do exactly that, right? So you can format, again, query means you can use any data in our database and format it as you please, which means that instead of trying to format it on your CG side or your target side, you can format it on the server side or source side. So that's that should do the trick. And CSV, you know, is just another format for us, like JSON, CSV, XML. There's many others, like formats that are specific for certain data types. They're all available for all our data containers.
That's great. No, thanks, George. So again, thanks for joining us today. We'll be bringing additional webinars to you in the near future. So just watch your email, or you can follow us on social media, LinkedIn, and so on for more details. And of course, if you have any questions, you can email us at info@bannisterlake.com. We'll be sending out a link to the, as I mentioned earlier, a link to this webinar clip will be in our webinar playlist. But again, if there's any questions regarding configuration, pricing, or you'd like an in-person demo, just contact us at info@bannisterlake.com. So thanks again, and thanks everyone for joining today. Appreciate it.